this works. We'll see. It will work for us, but I don't know what my virtual kids are going to see. Okay, and again, usually I'm walking around you people. I, again, encourage you to pay attention, encourage you, and I apologize for my board. I don't know why they didn't wipe that down, but hopefully eventually this shows up. And you will see, even though yours doesn't say First Humans, it's the same thing. All right, so we begin with chapter 1, First Humans. We're going to talk a little bit about time first, that how time is measured. Typically, I think you're used to seeing the abbreviations BC and AD. And those are the typical ones, old school, that were used. Modern historians have changed this to BCE, before Common Era, and CE, Common Era. And the reason being is that the people that first write history are monks, Catholic monks. They took and sat in monasteries with all these ancient textbooks, transcribed everything, and as they're writing things, they had to kind of set up a system. And the system they chose is, what's the most important thing that's happened in the history of the world? If I'm a Catholic monk, what do you think the most important thing in the history of the world that's happened if I'm a Catholic monk? The birth of somebody. Jesus, right? The birth of Jesus is the most important thing, if I'm a Catholic monk, that has occurred in the history of the whole entire world. So for me, writing the history, that's going to be the most important date. So I'm going to measure everything time-wise, everything that came after Jesus and everything that came before Jesus. And that works okay for the history of the world for people that believe that. But there's a whole lot of people in this world that don't believe that's the most important event that's happened in the history of the world. And so historians have had to say, we need to take a step back from that and let's change what we call it. We're not going to change when we mark time. It's still marked by the birth of that person that the Catholic monks believe was the most important person that has ever been born. But we're going to just change what we call it. So BCE, before Common Era, and then CE, Common Era. Old textbooks like ours go back and forth. If you really look through our textbook, half of the time it'll use AD and BC. The other half of the time it'll be BC, CE. I'm an old person like that textbook, and I try to remember to use BCE and CE. I don't always, but I try really hard. When you take history courses in university, depending on the age of your professor, that will occur as well. I bet by the time that you get there, all the old ones will be dead and everyone will use BCE and CE, although they last for a really long time. Okay? So now we need to talk about how we measure time. And so when we think about time, we need to look at a number line. So my math people, this will make perfect sense to you. People like me, try. I hate math. I hate numbers, hate everything about math. That's why me and Mr. O'Brien get along so well together. So I'm a number line. I'm 0. On this side are our negative numbers. On this side of our positive numbers. In 2020, we're on this side of the number line, right? We're the positive. So December 31st, 2020, when we wake up the next day will be January 1st, 2021, right? We're adding, we're moving this way. On this side of the number line, we go the other way. We go, for Common Era to 2007. This is how old this PowerPoint is. It's from 2007. So we're going this way. This way, we're going towards 0, so our numbers are getting smaller. Does that make sense? So when we look this way, -10 is way over there, -1 is here. So when we go to bed, December 31st, 4 BCE, and we wake up the next day, it's January 1st, year 3 BCE. Does that make sense? By number of people, that makes perfect sense. People like me that don't see that, it doesn't. Does it make sense? Again, we don't do dates in this class, but it's just really important for you to remember that we're running this way. 2 million BCE to 4 BCE. This is where we get, there's no year 0. Even though Jack Black says so, there's no year 0. We go 4 BCE, 4 Common Era, okay? It's weird. All right, does everybody understand that? Again, that's not a test question. It's just something to understand that as how we mark time. Next slide is chapter objectives. So this is an important thing between you and I. This is our contract, right? Your parents go to work and pay my salary, so you should hold me accountable for what you learn in this class. If I tell you what you're supposed to learn, I expect you to give me that stuff on a test. You should have that expectation of me that bless you, that I'm going to teach you that. If any of you guys, this is a time to stop. I have no problem with people getting up in my class if they need to sharpen a pencil or get a blow their nose. I also don't have any problem if you want to step outside and blow your nose. I actually would prefer, because I don't like to hear you blow your nose. So if you would like to step out there and blow your nose, just don't come at me, right? Just don't walk this way, because then I'll think something up. Walk that way to the pencil sharpener, walk that way to get your Kleenex. You don't have to ask, you don't have to get permission, especially as we move into allergy seasons. So, chapter objectives. I will clearly have those labeled. When it comes time for a test, you need to come back to this and say, did Mrs. Norris teach me these things? And if you feel that I did not, you need to let me know. If you don't know the definition of civilization and you can't identify the 8 features of a civilization, you need to let me know. Like, hey, lady, I did not get this. I went to teaching school. I can teach it 8 different ways. I love to ever get to way number 5. I don't ever get past usually way number 2, but I have them all in my head at my disposal to dispense to you if I can't get it the first way, okay? So I have expectations of you. You should have expectations of me, and I should meet the ones you have of me. You should meet the ones that I have of you, right? Okay, so here we go. Early humans. So the first thing about early humans is in history classes, we do not discuss how they get here. We just start with, here they are, walking on 2 feet. Hi, Mr. Stitzel. Walking on 2 feet, typically in and around the continent of Africa. That's where human beings begin. That's where we have found, well, I shouldn't say that. That's where the remains, the oldest remains that we have found are in southern and eastern Africa. And the time period of which we know the least is this time period known as prehistory. And prehistory is very simply the period of history when we have no written records. So everything we know about this time period is based on lots of different things. Evidence that we have gathered from archaeologists, anthropologists, and historians, biological evidence that would include DNA, skin, bones, and using technology. So we learn about them again, archaeological, biological information, and we also learn through archaeologists and anthropologists. The biological information, that's always changing. That's something that has changed rapidly with science. And I always like to throw out, while we are discussing things, awesome job opportunities, especially for people that like science and biology. But I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to go to school for 25,000 years. But I do like science. That's one of the things that you can think about is being some kind of using a biology degree to work with historians in a university setting where you get to do all the experiments, but you don't have to deal with sick people or touch people that are sick. All right? Any questions about early humans? The most important thing on this slide is that definition of prehistory. I will also put a little asterisk here. I don't make you do vocab in this class because I can't think of any opportunity in the whole entire word for you to use the word prehistory, right? Vocab that you learn in English, those are words to expand your vocabulary. Learning the word prehistory and what that means is not going to expand your vocabulary. You're going to use it to take and pass my test and probably not remember it ever. So I put the vocabulary in the notes, and you should always know when I put vocab in the notes, it's going to be a test question. So you have to know that. Almost always it's matching. Our test will be matching, multiple choice, and short answer. Okay? All right, here we go. I try to add all this. When we get to chapter 2, I won't be needing to add all these little things to the side. All right, our first look is at the archaeologist. Now, this is probably the person, historically speaking, in this triangle that you know the most about. It's Indiana Jones, Did I sing this to this class and nobody knew what I was singing? Dun, 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 dun. If you haven't watched Indiana Jones, those are awesome movies, except the last one, The Crystal Skull. That's a dumb one. Don't watch that one. An archaeologist. Very simple, and you do need to know what an archaeologist is. Studies the past, bless you, by analyzing artifacts. So an archaeologist goes somewhere, digs in the ground, pulls things out of the ground, says, wow, this is cool, and then takes them somewhere else. What is an artifact? Again, this is another vocab word. An artifact is a tool, and anything technology is a tool. A pencil is a tool. Household items, cups, saucers, spoons, weapons, spears, arrowheads, knives, buildings, and art are artifacts. What we leave behind, that is an artifact. So an example, again, would be of an archaeologist finding weapons and tools. So for the first 2 or 3 chapters, we're going to be a tribe. This will be our tribe. People are going to die in this tribe. People are going to get left behind. People are going to exalt themselves to places of higher prestige. But right now, we're all equal. Every single person in our tribe right now has 2 priorities. 1, we have to find food, and 2, we have to find shelter. And every single person in this room is looking for food. Every single person is looking for shelter. In the morning when we get up to move, if Kyra got sick in the night because she ate the wrong berries and she can't move, hey Kyra, this is the way we're going. Catch up. And she gets left behind. We don't have time to care for other people. We don't. If Addison falls a cliff and breaks her leg in the bottom, she's hollering. Well, I don't know if prehistoric man can yell, but she's like, we're like, sorry, we're going this way. We don't have time because we need to find food. We find food every day. Can we store food? A little bit, but not much because we're on the move. So what archaeologists, anthropologists, and historians look for is what changed. And one of the things that's going to change is somewhere along the way, we figure out we need somebody to make some weapons. We either need weapons to hunt animals, or we either need to hunt weapons to keep other people from hunting where we're hunting, right? We don't want people in our happy hunting ground. So somebody in this tribe is going to get elevated to a position where all they do is make weapons. And then instead of, there's 29 of us in here, instead of 29 people looking for food, 28 of us are looking for food, and we feed the one person that doesn't have to do that. And when we do that, we start to set up this spheres within our society of who is better than the other. Right now, we're all the same. The one time in history where men and women are equal are Paleolithic man, because every single person is looking for food. Everybody's looking for food. But then what an archaeologist will say, uh-oh, these people have tools and weapons. Somebody made them. That somebody is now a special person because they don't have to look for food. They get to sit back in the shelter and make these things while everyone else looks for food for them. Does that make sense? That is a key step towards civilization. It's really important. All right? So then the archaeologist is going to find all these things, and it's going to go to the anthropologist. And the anthropologist does 2 things as well. The anthropologist takes those artifacts that the archaeologist has and then adds to that human fossils. So, is a fossil an artifact? No, it is not. So you're going to have a test question that's going to say, all of the following are artifacts except, those are the questions that your brain hates because you're looking for the wrong answer, right? You guys are always geared toward looking. How many of you have trouble with except questions? You have trouble with except questions because you're looking for what's wrong. Except questions are just true and false. That's true, that's true, that's true, that's false, that's the right answer. So your question will list artifacts. All of the following are artifacts, except I don't know what they are. I'm just going to name things. A comb, glasses, a paintbrush, a dinosaur bone. And the thing that is not an artifact is the dinosaur bone. That is not an artifact. So the anthropologist is now going to look at those artifacts plus fossils. Why does she want to look at those fossils? Because now we can understand biologically a lot of things through science. Now we can get down to the last meal of what they had. Even more importantly, which again, don't like science, but this is really cool, they can, using DNA, get down to the specific type of berry and where that berry was found, which gives us the migratory patterns of these first humans. It is absolutely fascinating, and that's probably something that's happened within the last 40 years. So now I'm going to stop, and I want you, as the anthropologists and archaeologists on your notes on the side by side, do you see both of them at the same time? Okay, so here's where you'll get confused, because you're going to need to know the definition of an anthropologist and the definition of an archaeologist. They both start with A, they both got that IST at the end, so make sure you see the difference. The archaeologist uses one thing, artifacts. The anthropologist uses two things, artifact and fossils. Somehow you've got to get that in your head. Usually I have a trick for you, but I don't really have a trick for that one. You just got to get that in your head. Those are two test questions. Archaeologist is going to use artifacts. Anthropologist uses artifacts and fossils. Okay? Any questions about that? And why is the diet important? Again, I keyed on that at the end, but I want to make sure you understand why learning the diet of someone is important. When we learn their diet, we can track their migratory patterns. It's fascinating that from this DNA, we can get also the DNA. If you guys watch NCIS, you know Abby can find a tree from where that tree is at. They only grow in Western Kentucky. We know those things. So we can start to trace where that person moved and the migratory pattern of that person. We're going to do the same thing with pottery. Do I have any soils people? Mr. Cross's soils people? Okay, so we do the same thing with pottery. When we find shards of pottery, we can go down and look at where did that dirt come from. And we now know that they traded pottery with all over. So it's really important to be able to understand how we're able to do that and how we're able to completely understand the migratory patterns of these people. So now we got a couple of things with science, right? Because there's no prehistory, we are making theories, or better known as an educated guess. We don't know. There's a lot of stuff we don't know. We don't know how they communicated with each other. We don't think they spoke because they're anatomically, that little voice box thing isn't right. So we don't know that they spoke, which also gives us another question mark. How did they pass along important information? Like poor Kyra that ate the red berries. She didn't get the memo from everybody else. Don't eat those red berries. How did we pass that information along? Not just to ourselves, but to the children of those tribes. How did we pass along how to make weapons if we didn't speak? You want to make a guess, or are you just thinking? We don't know. We don't know. So we have to come up with theories, and those theories are based on all of this information that anthropologists and archaeologists. And one of the things that's really important is dating these things. How old are these things? How that fits into a timeline. Do you have a question? Or you just... Yes, of course.
How do you know that they didn't speak anything?
Anatomically, by looking at that, thank you, Brooklyn, by looking at that voice box thing, right? Because these people anatomically, the ones that we're talking about right now, don't look like us. We have to go millions of years until we get to Homo sapiens. We're going to go through Homo erectus, Neanderthals, Homo sapiens sapiens, before we get to man that looks like us. Okay? That's the extent of my knowledge, Bella. Then it goes over to that science lab room. That's the extent. But we do have to date it. So then we get to some science that we need to use in history to date things. I do not ask you anything about this on a test because it's science stuff. But you do need to know. Forever, ever, the only thing we had was radiocarbon dating. And that only goes to 50,000 years, which in history is not much. We don't get enough from that, being able to date that. So we needed something else, and you can read how radiocarbon dates. It dates it by releasing C14, and you measure what's left, and we can tell how long it's been in the dirt. The next one is thermolucent, and I think that's how you say it. I don't pretend to know. Dating. This can go up to 200,000 years old, and that is light given off by electrons trapped in the soil. And again, it's a measuring of that's done scientifically. Still can't get that great of dating. That only goes up to 200,000 years old. So that's how we date things. When we also look at our biological methods, this is this part of history that has caused rapid change. When we have access to DNA analysis, and as science improves on that DNA analysis, the ability for historians to drill down even further will become very exciting as we look. So what can we look at? Hair, blood, tissue, millions of years. So that again also helps us with the dating. And the fact that we can do that on things that old is phenomenal to me. Absolutely phenomenal. So now we're going to leave that stuff behind. That's just all the stuff we need to know so that we can begin to get to studying humans and looking at humans. So we're going to look at these early stages of development. The earliest humans are 3 to 4 million years ago. And they are discovered by Dr. Johansen in southern and eastern Africa. So we've not found anyone else older than that, and we haven't found them in any other place older than that. So that's where we start. And if we think about the conditions in Africa for humans that don't know how to make clothes and that are going to be exposed to the environment on a regular basis, it's hot, no real storms, no snow, no cold weather, not a lot of rain. Southern and eastern Africa has a lot of vegetation, a lot of animals, so it kind of makes sense that we find humans in that place. And these humans will be the first to make stone tools. Now, here is where I will tell you a test question and give you the answer. Some of you are still going to miss it. Hopefully, maybe this will be my first world history class that 100% of you get this right. So my test question is, what separates humans from animals? I don't know what C and D is, but B, and I'm just saying B, I don't know if it's really B because I scramble up, is walks on 2 feet. And everybody wants to pick that one. But my mom's dog, Fifi, her little poodle, can walk on 2 feet. A bear can walk on 2 feet. So does that separate us from animals? What separates us from animals is that we can make tools. We can make them. Animals use tools because somebody usually always wants to be cute and say, orangutans, monkeys use tools. They use them, yes. They don't make them. It's very specific. Not using tools, making tools. So here's how that works. And these will be the first humanoids to make tools. So let's start with something that everybody knows. A shell. The little fan shell that's flat at the bottom. I think it's a clam. It has a little scalloped edge. It's small, it's scooped, and it has a flat edge. It's perfect for digging. So if we are hunting roots, that's an awesome digging tool. One of the things, again, that's important to know as we move through this course, that we might talk about humans in different time periods, but human nature is always the same. In our tribe, as if we were in 2020 or if we were in 4 million BCE. There would be somebody that's lazy. There would be somebody that's funny. There would be somebody that's smart. There would be somebody that was always thinking of a better way to do things. There will be those of us that are chickens. That would be me. There are those of us that would be brave. There are those of us that would want to know what's around the river bend. Not me. I'm going to stay on this side of the river bend. You, Pocahontas, go around to the other river. If you didn't know what that song was. I'm not that person. You go first, I'll follow. Right? So that's human nature. So our tribe is digging for roots. We have to sit on the ground with this little clam shell and dig. Somebody in this group is going to be smart enough to say, you know, if we attach a stick to that, we can stand up and put our back into it and probably do a little bit better. And by those types of innovative thinking, we move from finding tools that we can use in earth, a stick, a clamshell, and develop it into a tool. And in develop them into tools, that's what is the difference between animals and humans. Okay? Questions about that? What you need to know, stone tools. That'll be our first ones, right? Stone tools. Our next group of people are called Homo erectus. Homo means man. Hopefully you can figure out erectus means upright. So man walking upright. And what you need to know about Homo erectus is fire. These were the people that learned to make fire deliberately. So already in our tribe, we have one person, Trinity, is making our weapons. So we got to find food for Trinity. Somebody's going to be responsible every day because she gets to sit back, relax, and make weapons. Now we need somebody to keep fire. And Casey becomes our fire person. That's all she needs to do. She either carries, and the way you make fire is flint, two flints and together, or with friction, right? You've got a stick, you put some grassy, and you start fire. So now in our tribe, we've got Trinity sitting at home, big, fat, and happy. We got Casey sitting at home, big, fat, and happy. And we got to go find food for the two of them. It elevates the status of how important weapons are and how important fire is. Fire is important because we would not have survived if we would not have had fire during the Ice Age. We're almost done. We got 2 more slides. This is longer than normal than I usually talk just because getting all set up. Next, Homo sapiens. And this is us. We are Homo sapiens sapiens. Wise human beings. And another subgroup that goes with this is Neanderthals. Anybody ever heard of Neanderthals or heard that name before? It typically, when we use it present day, it means someone like not so smart, right? The big long hands, the unibrow, caveman type of thing. And people, this is what we're talking about. In case you haven't figured out, Paleolithic man, that's cavemen. That's what we're talking about. We're just using the proper terms. So we've got these two groups, Neanderthals and Homo sapiens sapiens. In 2020, are there Homo sapiens sapiens? Yes, you're looking at them. In 2020, do we have Neanderthals? No, they're gone. Another historical mystery, we don't know where they went. Have no idea where they went. We think we know, but we don't. Neanderthals. One of the awesome things is about history is if you find something or you discover something, you get to name it. And these fossils were found in the Neander Valley in Germany by a German archaeologist, and then he named them Neanderthals. Now let's think about this for a moment. When we first started talking about these first humans, they were in Africa, where you could walk around without clothes and not be affected by weather. The Neander Valley in Germany, you think you could walk around naked there? No, it's cold. It's very cold. On this slide, everything after those last 4 bullet points, all test questions. And so you need to know everything about these Neanderthal people, even though they don't exist anymore. And why we need to know these things are really important. And the first one is really important. They are the first people to bury their dead. And we got to talk about why that is an important thing. So we just left poor Kyra back in our village. We didn't bury her. We didn't say goodbye to her. We moved on. So when an archaeologist finds her bones, just bones. How do we know that these people buried their dead? It's because they buried things with them. They buried pots, they buried weapons, they buried tools, some maybe buried food. Do you think as a tribe that those are things that we have excess of and let's just give away? No. So to bury someone with those things tells us that they thought that something important was going to happen when you die. Now we suggest and we think that it's an afterlife. We just call it an afterlife. That this group of people, these Neanderthals, thought when you died, something happened to you and you needed stuff, right? You need things. And burying people, and I apologize in advance that this might be unsympathetic to any of you that have recently lost a loved one, and I don't mean it to be this way, but let's think about burying people in a academic way, okay? And I'm going to use my granny. She's been dead for a long time. My granny, my granny had planned her funeral by the time she was 50. She lived till she was 93. If you went to my granny's house, she would gladly show you the outfit she was going to be buried in, the whole thing. My granny picked the most expensive casket. Why? And we're thinking academically, and I apologize if this seems insensitive, but why would you pick a $5,000 box to be buried in? My granny was a Pentecostal holiness woman, didn't wear jewelry, didn't wear makeup, but she wanted her wedding rings and the insistent that she be put in pantyhose because she did not go bare-legged, and shoes and a slip. You guys probably don't even know what a slip is. And her girdle, which is Spanx for those of you. So my granny is dead in a box. I love my granny. In a full outfit, pantyhose, shoes, a girdle, wedding rings, and her hair done. Hair done. Rolled, do any of you still have grandmas that roll their hair in the little, somebody washed roll her hair. She didn't wear makeup. So why do we do that? I tell you why my granny did it, because she's a Pentecostal woman and she believed that was how she was presenting herself to Jesus. Right? That's what my granny believed, that she had to look a certain way to present herself to Jesus. That was her belief system. This is how we get with these people, that it meant something. And so now we know that this tribe believes in something. We don't know when it changed, bless you. We don't know how it changed. We don't know why it changed, but something changed. And now we no longer leave people on the side of the road. We bury them. And not only do we bury them, but we give them really important stuff. I would have loved to have had my granny's wedding rings, not because they were worth anything, but because they were something on my granny's. Hello? Nope, I had them 5th hour, 6th hour. Yes, that's okay. No worries. I don't know usually what time it is anyway either. That's okay. Yeah, right. Bye. So, again, it tells us something really important about what they believed about the afterlife. The second part is skins, animal skins. So now we have somebody that makes weapons, somebody that has fire. Can you just kill an animal and put the skin on? I don't think so. I've never done it, but I think you kind of have to scrape some stuff off. We're going to have to sew something together. So we're creating more skills for our village. And so now we're going to let Lily do that. She's going to be the animal skin maker. So now there's 3 people in our village that don't have to hunt, that now have a step above us. Here we are, hunters and gatherers, and here are the 3 of them. They get to stay back at the village, and we have to go do something for them. We're setting up this socioeconomic stratification in our tribe, that some people are better than others because of what they can do. Right? Do we still think that today in 2020? This happens in 30,000 BCE. okay? We don't know how they died. We think conflict, war. There's no Neanderthals living. Nobody has Neanderthal DNA. We don't know. I have to take that back because I do think they've found some Neanderthal DNA. All right, at this point I ask, does anybody need me to go back to any other slides? I will tell you that. I always will go back. I don't think I'm going back because you weren't paying attention. I actually think you were so enthralled with what I was saying you forgot to write something down. So if you need me to go back, please do not be embarrassed. I would rather go back rather than you bother your neighbor and ask about it. So nobody needs me to go back. Do we have any questions? Questions about anything? I don't know why this class period took so long. We did not get to the assignment. There is an assignment that my 4th hour started on. I think 4th hour's longer. Don't worry about it. We'll look at it on Monday. Okay? So the assignment is there. If you want to look at it, it's self-explanatory. Those of you that are self-starters, go ahead. But we'll work on that Monday in class. All right? Questions, anyone? I hope this recording